Hi everyone, so following from one of my previous Open University videos, someone asked to do a video on time management, and I think I've done one in the past. As I've done a lot more studying and finished my studies since, I wanted to sort of update the list of tips and things that I found helpful when trying to especially study online, but definitely it applies to any studying that you might be able to do. And yeah, a few tips on how I find it helpful to organize my time. I'm gonna get right into it, and the first thing that I have is to have a deadline before the deadline. That's helped me so much because you might have heard before that a task will take you as long as the time that you have to do it, and that is definitely true for me. I procrastinate a lot. If I know that I have something to do on the 10th, I might not do it until the 9th, but sometimes, especially if you're trying to time manage, you have a lot of other things going on. If you leave it for the day before, you might actually not have time to get it done then, and you're just rushing, and especially if what you're doing takes a bit more time or like thinking time. Maths and physics, there's definitely things that you're not just finding on the book, copying and pasting sort of thing. Not that other degrees do, but if it requires a bit of thought, I like to set myself a different deadline. So if it's the 10th, I'll say the deadline is the 8th, so that I know that I'm completing it by the 8th. And if something happens and I'm not able to, then at least I have 2 more additional days, or however many, to actually get it done. But definitely have that deadline in your calendar and forget about the real one, because otherwise, if you know the real one, then you won't do it then. So yeah, that's one of my tips. And with that, I do find apps quite useful when it comes to organizing my time, my assignments, all the deadlines, everything that I'm having to do. Especially with the Open University, they'll give you a full timeline on when you should be studying each unit, when you have all your assignments and everything. So I find it quite useful to have it all in one place for all my different modules. Again, as an example with the Open University, you'll have your different module websites and each one will have a timeline. I like to take those offline or still online but a different platform and combine them into one so I know everything that I actually have to do. Some of my favorite ones that I've used in the past are Notion, Trello, Todoist, or even Microsoft To Do, because it's a to-do list, but you can actually categorize and put deadlines into things. But Notion is definitely my favorite one. All of these, I've just had the free versions. I've never paid for any of them. I don't think you need to pay for them for the things you need to do as a student, so definitely go with the free version, but I definitely recommend using one of them just so you can see everything in one place. If not, if you prefer paper, then have a physical calendar where you're actually marking the things. So every day when you're doing other things, if you're working at the same time, or if you just have it on your desk, you can actually see where you're supposed to be in your studies, if that makes sense. A bit of a generic and a given one, but I did want to mention at least the apps that I found helpful for time management as a student. In terms of calendars as well, I really like blocking my calendar and color coding, especially if you have a busy life or you're a shift worker or you have a full-time job at the same time, but especially if your day is not the same every day, I find it super helpful to go on a calendar and actually block out times with different colors. You could do like blue for work, green for study, yellow for social stuff, and you can actually move it around. So when you're on your day-to-day, or if you're looking at what are you doing next Wednesday, you might be able to see how long you have to do each thing. I do that also just for my own work calendar. I love color coding each thing, so I have one color for external calls, one different color for internal calls, a different color for when I put my own tasks into my calendar, and it just really helps see things as an overview. I can very quickly see if one week I have a lot of external clients or a lot of internal meetings or just a lot of stuff that I have to get done. With one sort of look, without having to read, you actually know what you're doing that week or that day. And be realistic with the time that you actually have to do those things. When it comes to studying, I feel like a lot of us usually think that we're gonna study a lot. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna do 3 hours each day. On the weekends, I'll do 5 hours each day. And you're like, yes, that's what I need to be doing. It's not realistic, is it? A lot of days I would not get anything done. a lot of days I was quite happy on my weekdays if I got 1 hour of studying done. I know that I'm working 8 hours already, so on a daily, like weekday, I don't have time to do 3 hours of studying. If you have to do something else or do a bigger dinner that takes a bit longer to cook, or you're just a bit tired from work, it's not realistic to say you're going to do 3 hours. When you're blocking out your times, be very realistic with what you think you can achieve and just set out the minimum times that you want to do. So for me, I would do 1 hour of study each day. If one day I'm actually feeling it and I'm doing a bit better, then I'll just do a bit longer. And that's okay, but you need to have realistic expectations. Otherwise, you won't meet your deadlines, you'll get frustrated that you're not doing enough. And a lot of that comes into your mind, and you might actually get slower at doing things just because in your mind you know you're being slow. You're like, I don't have enough time. And all that time thinking about not having time actually leaves you with less time to study or to get other things done. So yeah, be realistic. If it's less time, it's less time, that's fine. Find ways to optimize other parts of your life. What I mean by this is when you're blocking things out, I like blocking longer blocks for different things. So if I'm doing house chores, rather than doing one thing at 10 a.m. and then I'll do the next one at 12 and the next one the following day, I'd rather block them all together, because I find that for me, thinking about what I'm having to do next already delays what I'm currently doing. So if I'm studying, but I know that in 30 minutes I need to do my washing, then I'll be thinking about, in 30 minutes I need to be doing my washing. So then maybe in 20 minutes I'm like, well, I might as well stop now because I have to do this thing. If you do that a lot, you're actually cutting into your own studying time just by thinking about what you need to do next. And if you're like me, you'll know that getting started takes you longer than just continuing something. Getting started with studying, you have to get into your mindset, you have to get, for me it was my iPad out, my computer ready. Getting all that setup done, just getting started, took a lot longer than if you've already been doing it 30 minutes and you have a bathroom break. You're still in your mindset of what you're doing. So I'd rather block other things in my life in longer chunks, so then I can also study in a more continuous way. Hopefully that makes sense, but just try not to have too many stops and things in between, because you might not think it does, but it does actually take you longer to study if you do that. And in terms of having that mindset of getting to study, I found it quite helpful to do 1 hour of work each day right after work, because I would already be in a focused mindset. I don't have to get started again, and that's, my previous point. When you're like, all right, I'm sitting down, I'm studying, here's my thinking cap now, let me think about what I'm gonna do. I found that more difficult if I had a break in between. Whereas you might think you don't want to do a continuous, if you're doing 8 hours of work and then 1 hour of study. For me, working from home, it's been particularly easy the last year and a half. I'd be on my work computer, I would finish, close that, open my other computer, get my iPad out, and I would just be in that focused mindset and we'll do 1 hour. And in that 1 hour, I would get a lot more done than if I had a 1 hour break and then started my studying. If you're not working from home, that's obviously a lot more difficult, but even if you're able to, if you're really struggling with time, even if you work in an office, and rather than going home right after work, if you can still be in your office but doing your studying for a little bit, then I find that a lot more helpful, just because of that mindset of just being focused and doing it in a more continuous way. Also find the thing that works for you, because I know a lot of people like taking notes on notepads, a lot of people like writing on the computer. I've been liking using my iPad, and it just really depends on what you prefer. So take the time to actually find what works for you, and it might take a bit longer initially when you're testing different things or you're trying to figure out what's the right thing for you. But if you find it early on, then you'll just continue doing the same thing throughout your studies, and it'll save you time eventually. I've been doing different things throughout the years. I started writing on notepads, I started then doing my iPad, then I had it on the computer for a while. And then when you're trying to study something that it's on 3 different mediums, it's a lot more complicated. It takes a lot more time, and you're like, oh, I wrote it in paper, so might as well copy it onto my computer now. and then you're wasting time redoing something that you could have already done in the computer to begin with, if that's your preferred method. So I would say take some time initially to figure out which way is going to work for you, which is the best way for you to take those notes, and just continue with that longer. If down the road you find that something else might work for you, then that's fine. I would recommend changing whenever the new academic year starts, so you don't do it mid-year, because then that's gonna waste a lot of time if you have to go back to different notes to look at things, and then you have your new ones, and it feels like it doesn't take that long, but it does. And I found that a couple of times when I was changing things and I was like, why did I not do this in my iPad to begin with? And the last thing, which is one thing that I think a lot of people probably don't want to hear about, is get up earlier. And I've struggled with this for a long time. I used to get up at 10 a.m. at the weekend, and then once you go to the bathroom, you get up properly, you have your breakfast, you sit down a little bit, it's already noon. Half the day is gone and you haven't even done anything yet. Thankfully, recently I've been just naturally getting up from 7 to 8 a.m. I think that's because that's the time that I get up on a weekday, and I've been getting up at that time naturally at the weekend. Also because I've been sleeping enough hours. Get up early, don't go to bed late. I think that's sort of how it works. Have a consistent sleeping schedule so your body knows when to wake up at the weekend. You don't feel as tired in the morning, and if you get up at 8 rather than 10, you literally have 2 extra free hours that day, which again, I understand if you don't want to do it. I struggled with it for ages. You have 2 more hours suddenly. So if you're struggling to find time to do things, that's the way to go. I like studying at night and I feel like I'm productive at night, but also I'm a lot more tired in the evenings and at night. So I find that actually I just need to go to bed earlier and then get up earlier the following day, and then I'm more productive that way. I used to be, my first time at university when I was younger, maybe this is an age thing, I used to be so much more productive at night. Like sometimes I would go to sleep at 2 a.m. and I was actually doing stuff until 2 a.m. and I was like, this is my time to do it. Now I'm not productive at all after 6, 7 p.m. I'm tired and I'm grumpy and I don't want to do anything. I'm a lot more productive in the morning now. So maybe it's an age thing, or maybe it's a sleeping schedule pattern sort of thing. I used to have it all messed up and now it's a bit more consistent. So if that's something that you're struggling with, then definitely recommend setting those times and just doing it every day and having it more consistent. Those are the tips that I wanted to share, but if you have any others that you want to share with me or with other people, then definitely leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you guys later with another video. Bye!